Hi guys, and welcome to Sound Design using Logic 10. Today we're going to be talking about what I call creating the canvas. And what creating the canvas is making all the risers and sound effects and just kind of making a base for your track that sits underneath everything else, and it really helps you with it having a really well polished mix. So the first noise that we're going to learn how to make today is a white noise riser, and we're going to make it using the ES2 synthesizer. It's going to end up sounding like this. So we're actually going to get into bussing and bussing reverb and why to bus reverb, as well as a bit of sidechain compression. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a new instrument here. Now, if we go down to Logic, you can pull up the ES2 synthesizer right here. Now, I should mention that you can make this sound in a whole number of different synthesizers, but for now we're just going to use this one. So it starts with the factory default, which isn't exactly what we're going for. So we can start off a little bit easier by going into the analog saw init, which stands for initialize. Okay, so now what we need to look for is which oscillators are operating and which ones are not. So if you look at this node here, it's saying 100% signal on oscillator 1. So what we want to do is we want to send it down to 3, because 3 is actually our oscillator that has a noise generator. So we can go ahead and turn this oscillator 1 off now. So the next thing that we're going to try to do is we're going to want to take these modulations here, and we're going to want to turn them off. And if you hold Alt or Option, you can just go ahead and click on the top block and you can turn these off. So now it sounds like this. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and use this envelope 2 here, which is right over here, to modulate this knob, or cutoff. And so if we go ahead and drag this down, you can hear the sound now. You can hear that it's decaying fairly quickly. And what we want to do is we want to reverse that and flip that around so that it opens up slowly, like a riser would. So if you take this attack knob and you drag it all the way to the top, here's what you get. Cool. So now we're getting into the right area here. We're getting close to the sound that we want to make. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw in a MIDI note here. If you hold Control, you can click and add empty MIDI region. You can drag this out. And by holding Command, you could draw in a note. So once we have this note here, I'm just going to lengthen it up a bit. What we're going to do is we're going to start using some automation and some bussing to get a little bit more polished sound. So the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to put an EQ on this. And basically what we're going to do is first we're going to chop out the lows, because you don't really need the low frequency cluttering up the bottom end of your mix. It's just a rough sound that you really won't hear anyway. So now this is what it sounds like. Cool. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to automate this high cut to kind of raise up over time, so over the length of the note. So depending on what you set your low cut to, you can set this high cut to kind of intersect and then open up. So let's go ahead and do it at 560. So now that we have that there, we're basically going to go into the automation section here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select region here. And what that does is, instead of dealing with this long string of automation throughout the track, which I don't really like to use, it's going to automate directly on this region. So the next time that we go ahead and copy and paste it over, the automation stays with it and it doesn't create a big old mess for us. So I'm going to click here where it says volume. We're going to go up to channel EQ, and what we're going to do is we're going to automate this high cut frequency. So since we left it at 550 in the EQ, if we go ahead and add some points here, you can just go ahead and drag this up. And if you hold Control and Shift, you can click on this line and you can curve it. So now what we have is this. It's a little bit smoother, a little bit cleaner. I'm going to go ahead and pull this knob down a little bit more so that a little bit less of the sound is coming through at the beginning of the note. So let's listen again. So now if we go ahead and click add a new instrument, we can add in the Klopfgeist, or like the metronome click that we're going to use to set up the sidechain. So if you just go to Logic, Utility, Klopfgeist. So this is just a very basic sounding click. It sounds like this. So we're just going to use this to make the pumping effect happen on the reverb over here, and so it leaves a little bit of room for your kick drum or whatever other instruments you have during your drop that are coming in. It just helps it keep it a little bit less clustered. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this MIDI down, and if you just hold Alt and drag, or Option and drag, you can go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is we want to send this to a bus. And the reason that we're going to do that is because we're going to have it basically be silent, but still be there. So if you go over to bus 1, you can set up your sidechain. And once you're on bus 1, it will be set to stereo output, but we're going to change that to no output. So if you see over here, you can see that it's still sending signal out. It's just not going to the overall mix of all your tracks. So once we have that set up, basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up the reverb now. So this won't be set up naturally, but if you click here, you can go down and do bus 7, which is what I use for the reverb bus, and I use this every time. It's just an organizational thing. I always use buses 7 and 8 for reverbs, buses 9 and 10 for delays, and I just know that they're there every time. And so what you're going to do is click and drag this up. And let's just go to minus 10. And this bus will have nothing on it as well. So what you just can do is you can just go down to Logic, Reverb, and open up Platinum Verb. And once you open up Platinum Verb, we can just pull up this preset, Bright Long Verb, and then just take it from 3.5 seconds all the way up to 4. And that's just giving us a long enough reverb tail to be functional here, and so I can show you guys what this sounds like. So if I go ahead and unmute it, it sounds like this now. Which is really cool, especially if you don't want this pumping effect. You can use this during a transition somewhere in your song where there's not necessarily a kick drum or something else getting in the way. But I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to set that up, because it's a really cool effect with the sidechain sound pumping on it. So if you go into Logic's compressors here, you can pull up the Logic compressor, or you can pull it up by simply clicking on this little tiny gray bar here. And once we have this pulled up, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to sidechain up here in the corner, and we're going to go ahead and click bus 1. So once we have bus 1 set up, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a compression ratio that is going to basically make our reverb start to pump. And I usually put my threshold down to around 30 to 35 for this type of sound, and pull my ratio all the way up to like 3.5 to 4. And so here's what that sounds like now. So you can see that this metronome click is starting to pump in here and send this compressor some volume. And what that's doing is it's pressing down the volume of our white noise. So that's pretty much it for this sort of sound. What I would recommend doing is, once you're kind of done setting this whole thing up, go to your ES2 and save this as, white noise riser. And just so you have it for the next time that you do it, and you don't have to go through all the pain of setting this up. And, go ahead and save yourself a template that has this bus 7, and you can even save your channel strips here. It will be very time saving later on, and you'll be able to crank out really solid tunes a lot quicker. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about is why to bus reverb, and why not to use it inside the synthesizer. And this is one thing that I explain to guys all the time, is that, like, let's say that you add a compressor here on the channel strip of your instrument, and there's a reverb coming out of your synthesizer. You're instantly compressing the reverb that was just on this, and I don't usually want that. I usually don't want my reverbs to be like overly compressed or anything like that, and when I do compress them, I want to have complete control over it. And when it's in the synthesizer, you just really have a lack of amount of control. And so if you send it out to this bus here, you can add an EQ to it, and you can automate this EQ to rise up or do all kinds of cool stuff. You can low cut it and chop out all the muddiness in the low end, and you could you can compress and sidechain this without the sidechaining happening on this instrument. So it's just a total use of control, and being precise and being practical with the tools that you have to create the best sounding mix that you possibly can. And this is a part of it. So I hope you guys like this trick. I'm going to evolve more on this later, but I wanted to show you guys this first because it's one of the most handy things that I've found. Is side chaining reverb and being able to chop parts of your sound out. You can also do this side chaining with a volume shaper if you put it onto a bus, which is really cool as well. Well, that's it for this trick, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, and have an awesome day.